take one state that did it right. If for all the states, almost every state is in some type of position right now to be in some type of legalized cannabis, certain type of sort of acceptable cannabis, right? So it's either medical or recreational, some type, and they're all going that direction right now. If you were going to maybe pick out a state that you think, okay, let's Arizona model after, is there one that looks better than the other right now?
Oh God, I would hesitate to say. I don't think the jury's back yet on that. Mm-hmm. And not to try to dodge the question, but I just think it's too soon to say.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And you've got to remember that as you go state by state by state, the laws are so unique and different. Mm-hmm. And the overarching problem is this federal prohibition prevents any of these products from crossing state lines. So none of these businesses can go from one state to another. Mm-hmm. So they're really having to create entire programs that are like these little legislative islands. Yeah. And these islands never touch and they never meet and they never interact. And I think that's a stymieing problem that's ultimately going to retard growth and normalization of this industry. Yeah. But trying to answer your question, I can say this much. Arizona's got a unique opportunity to actually lead the nation right now because we've got recreational up as an issue for this coming election.
Well, we have two options, right? Or kind of.
Well, maybe. There's technically none yet.
None.
I mean, from a certain perspective, technically none yet. Right. But here's, for you folks at home who are listening, here's what's happening. There is a group spun off by the Dispensary Association that's promoting what's going to be a recreational proposition. It's going to follow the same path that AMA did. It's going to get on the ballot by proposition. There is another group that I've recently joined and I'm affiliated with that is preferring to go by referendum through the legislature. And they'd rather the legislature finally took action and embraced this thing because it is the reality of the situation for them, and ignoring it doesn't help anybody. Now, neither of these are technically on any ballot yet because there aren't any ballots yet. Last I heard, which was about a week ago, the recreational initiative that the Dispensary Association is promoting is just about close to having all the signatures needed to get on the ballot, and I'm confident they will. I don't doubt for a moment.
I think I heard a number like 250,000 signatures, and they all have to be authenticated, correct?
Correct. And the way it works for propositions, it's the number of votes cast for the governor in the prior election is the number of signatures you have to have in order to get on the ballot. So the number changes, election by election. Right. But yeah, I think this year it's like 237,000. Don't quote me on that. I might be off by a couple tens of thousands. But
right, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, somewhere between 230 and 250.
So I think the group you're part of, Arizona Cannabis, what's a group called?
Cannabis Chamber of Commerce.
Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, okay. And then with that, do you have to go through a petition as well and to petition?
So here's the path they're choosing to take. They want to go by referendum. So what would occur is the referendum would initiate in the legislature. But rather than the legislature just passing a law, instead they put the question to the public by putting that referendum on the ballot. And we've seen these before with a lot of other issues and agencies in Arizona. And the way the referendum acts, the legislature says to the public, hey, we're being asked, or we're in contemplation of creating this new body of law. We're asking you, the Arizona voter, how do you feel about that? Do you want to say yes to this or no to this? And that ends up on the ballot, and people will vote yay or nay.
So will that have the same protection as the AMA?
It would not. It's not a public initiative, it's a referendum.
Right.
So this would be something created by the legislature.
Right. So to frame that kind of a little differently, so if it's there, they can go into dead of night and change things and tinkle with it and do what they want with it, correct?
It's definitely a possibility, yes.
So,
but understand, I mean, we joke about legislatures doing stuff in the dead of night. Understand that doesn't happen that often. Our legislative session here in Arizona lasts roughly 100 days.
Right.
We have a part-time legislature, not a full-time legislature. In my younger days, I used to think that was bad. I always wanted a full-time legislature. But the older I get, I see the wisdom of the part-time legislature.
Right.
So I don't think there are like, secret cabals that meet in the dark of night and pass a law and don't tell anybody. I don't think that happens. But are there secret meetings where people talk and vent their spleens and say they don't want this, and they all look at each other and say, I agree? Sure. I don't doubt that happens.
Right. Wow.
But here's the stakes that Arizona needs to understand. Recreational's coming. It's not a question of whether, it's a question of when. And 2020 is as good an election year as any to finally just let's get over the hump and move on to the next thing. We've waited a decade, and AMA has proven itself to be reasonably responsible. We've seen no uptick in crime, no uptick in drug addictions. It's been reasonably stable, reasonably quiet. So it's proven itself.
Right.
And relative to recreational, people need to remember making it recreational doesn't mean there's a sudden explosion of a new market. It's not like everybody's banging on the door to try this stuff.
Right.
But the people who are curious and want to, all we're saying is they should be allowed to if they wish.
Well, what it does, it gives protection to many people because, what happens, let's say we have 219,000 people. In reality, a lot of those people, they buy for themselves and maybe share with a friend. But that friend's not protected anymore, right?
Well, nobody is in that transaction because part of AMA's restriction is thou shalt not share with thy friends.
Right, but everyone knows it happens.
Well,
everyone knows it happens.
If it does happen, and I have not been aware to it, but if it does happen, I will say it shouldn't be happening. That's a violation of AMA.
But let's make this clear though. But if I had a recommendation card and you had a recommendation card, we could share with no money.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
We could share. I can't sell it to you though.
Patient-to-patient transfers that are gratuitous are acceptable. They are okay under the law. But you are correct. As a patient, I can't sell you my weed. That's a violation, and I blow my safe harbor. And you never had one to begin with, so now we're both getting charged. Same thing with caregivers. Some patients have the need for extra assistance, so they can designate a caregiver.
Right.
The caregiver effectively is the proxy for the patient, and they can do things like actually grow plants for the patient and administer those plants to the patient. And the caregiver can be compensated for that, but only as a reimbursement for the expense they incurred in administering the service.
Right.
What they can't do is profit.
Back in the beginning, caregivers were the ones that were really running, Arizona.
Correct.
They were having it all. And,
that was the 2011 to 2012 years with the Jan Brewer federal lawsuit that tried to kill AMA.
Yeah, so, you wonder where dispensaries got all their genetics is from the Arizona caregivers.
Yeah, well, the running joke is if you look at AMA, there's no provision in it whatsoever for the source of any seeds or plants.
Right.
So the joke in the industry is that all of the crops blew in on the wind one afternoon when it was a particularly blustery day in California.
Well, that's why I saw it.
Yeah.
The Santa Ana winds are terrible.
Yeah, tumbleweeds, as we call them.
Tumbleweeds. Oh, my God. Gary, man, thank you very much for being here. And you're super special, and we'd like to get you back, and you have some things going on besides this, too.